Morning, everybody. Time for another episode. So, on this one, I am hoping we're going to hear this thing run. So, let's see what we got to do.
No, you're not bringing home another piece of junk.
All right, so here's where we left off. Off camera, I opened the carburetor up and I put a new accelerator pump in it and sprayed the gunk out of the bottom of the bowl and just changed the gaskets on it. So it's like a 5-minute rebuild. I probably should have filmed that, but I honestly didn't think about it. So we got that back on there. The new starter is in down there. I haven't tried to crank on it yet. Don't have any wires on it yet. So what I need to do is I need to hook fuel lines up. We need to get plug wires on. I've got this temperature sending unit we got to get in the side over here. So we got a hole over there. I need to loop that hole together. We need to get coolant in it. I need to get a belt on it. So a lot of little things. So let's get, need some vacuum hoses on it. Let's get all that stuff done. And I need a battery. I got a side post. We'll see how that works. So let's get all that stuff done, and then we're gonna try to transmission fluid. Gonna put transmission fluid in it, and I am gonna go ahead and jack the back of this thing up and put it on jack stands with the wheels off the ground, just in case I don't have that transmission linkage adjusted right. Because there's no brakes, and I really don't want it taking off and going through the back wall of my garage if it does start. So one concern I have with this HEI distributor, I know they put these HEIs on these straight sixes. I ordered this one off of eBay, took the points distributor off, but boy, you did not get, you see right there, the hold down screw for the cap is hitting the engine, and then you go this way and that hold down screw for the cap is hitting the engine. So you don't, I mean, you got a fair amount of travel there, but not a whole lot. So we're gonna have to see how that works out as far as adjusting the timing. So okay, well let's get all that done. Let's get some fluids in this thing, and I'm gonna have to hook up some kind of fuel system. Here's the factory fuel line for that monojet. We'll go ahead and get that hooked up to the pump, and then I'll just run a hose into a gas can, see if we're sucking up out of there. I hope I got some starting fluid around here somewhere. Anyway, let's get all this done, and we're just gonna hot wire it and see if it's going to crank up. And then if it does, which I hope it does, then we'll see where we go from there. So back in just a few. Okay, so we got the some vacuum lines on. I got the belt on it. I got the fuel line on it. Somewhere around here is the little line that screws to the carburetor and does the vacuum advance. I need to find that so that's not leaking vacuum. And then I found this hose. I think this is actually, I bought this for that hideous Fiero that I had. If you look back on some videos of that was the, gosh, that thing was horrible. Neat looking car, but electrical nightmare. So what else do we need to do? Okay, I need to get, let's get some fluids in this thing. I need to get wires on it. I went ahead and rolled the crank around to get the mark on top dead center so I can see where number 1 is on the cap, and we can get the wires on this thing, and find out the firing order. I don't know the firing order on the end lines off the top of my head. So oh, and we need to plug the oil pressure port, because that would really not be good to have that open if and when it fires up. So, okay, let's keep rolling, and we'll get there. Okay, so I think we're getting ready for some action here. I got some battery cables hooked up. Got a battery hooked up, all hoses hooked up. I just got a temporary oil pressure gauge back here, coolant's in it. No fuel or ignition hooked up yet. I'll tell you what I had to do on this. Somebody had said something about this way back on one of my videos where I was doing this engine, that they had trouble with these HEI distributors interfering with the engine block, and I thought, well, I know they put HEI distributors on these, so I bought one off of eBay, and I'll be darned if it, these hold downs, there was just like no room to advance or retard the thing. It would hit the hold down, that one hold down would hit the block. So what I did is I took my little roll lock wheel, and I ground one of these hold downs off, because I figured it should stay on there with 3, and that gave me plenty of room to advance and retard. So we'll see if that works. Maybe I'll check in to see if they had a special distributor cap for these, but just kind of a weird situation. It hits the lifter cover, so maybe there was a different lifter cover on the HEI motors. I don't know. So if anybody knows what the deal is with that out there, just leave it in the bottom of the comments, and otherwise I'm hoping this is going to work. It didn't mess with the inside of the cap, and I think 3 will hold it on there well enough for a little 150 horsepower 6-cylinder, whatever it is. So training fluids in. I can't think of what else. All right, so first, let me just get my my crank it over checker and hook it up, and let's just see if it turns over okay. And if it turns over okay, we'll hook the power up the distributor, put a little fuel down it, and see what it does. And if that's okay, then we'll get some fuel going on it and see what it does. So I have never heard this engine run, so if you follow along way back on the old videos, you know that I bought this motor for like $150, and the guy said it ran good. And we tore it apart, and we did some gaskets on it, and I think I had 1 bearing or 2 bearings that had a little bit of a scuff mark. We replaced those, so kind of look back and you can see what was done to it. Cylinders look good, we did all the gaskets, so we're gonna see. I hope it's a good one. I do got the back jacked up, got the back wheels off the ground just in case. I don't want to go flying. We'll see what my $79 mini starter does here. Squeeze that little clamp on there. Okay. The thing I love about inline sixes is there's just so much room to work on them. All right, let's see what we got. That's a good sign. All right, well, let's let me get a wire, and we'll hook up the battery and get some gas. We'll dump a little gas down this thing and see if it does anything. It is open manifold, so if it does start, it's gonna be loud. Let me get a piece of wire. Be right back. All right, got an ignition wire hooked up here. Just give it a little bit of fuel. Just want to give it a snort and see if it's going to do anything. That sounds like a timing issue. That definitely sounds like a timing issue. All right, let me go back through and check my firing order and make sure my wires are all in the same place, and then we'll go from there. All right, so we are right on 0 down there. Plug number 1 is right here. Let's make sure that's where we are. Get that one. Yeah, that's where it is. Trial number 1. Now, the plug wire's in the right hole. Okay, I gotta turn my phone off and look the firing order up. Back in a sec. Okay, I think we're 180 degrees out. My firing order's right, but I rolled the balancer around 1 full turn and checked it again, and we're on number 6. So I thought that mark was every time you rolled that mark around, you were at top dead center, but I guess it's every other time you roll that mark around, you're at top dead center. So I'm gonna loosen the distributor up, pull it, flip it 180, and we'll try this again. All right, let's try this again. Leaks around that throttle shaft a little bit. Goes kaboom again. That sounds better. Let me crank the idle up on that thing. Back or forward. Let's try and do something. See what, I'm gonna crank it all the way up. I want a big kaboom in my face. sounded better. All right, let me get some start fluid here somewhere. Got real crazy about that stuff. See if we can give it a snort of this. That's what I wanted. Okay, let's get a fuel supply hooked up to this thing and see if that pump is working. There's a new pump on it. See if we can get this thing to pump some fuel and get her idle. All right, I got a fuel line run to a can. I don't have a whole lot of fuel here. I hope there's enough in there to there to do something. Make sure my hose is covered up. Yeah, it is. Probably about half a gallon in there. All right, get up in here, see if I can give myself a flaming haircut. See if we can get this thing to go. Pick up some gas, baby. Like that battery's getting a little weak. Flashlight here somewhere. I thought I did. Let's see if this thing's pumping fuel or not. Anything yet. Close. Not bumping any fuel. If there's a filter in there, that thing could be clogged up too. Keep it going long enough with this. To get it to pick up. Nope. All right, we're gonna have to charge the battery, but it does. I'll say it does run. Should have been looking at this oil pressure gauge. I don't know if we ran it long enough to get any pressure going. But I don't know if I'm getting fuel yet, so I got to get this battery charged up, and then we'll see. But what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get that going. And I'm gonna clean this thing out, and we're gonna go ahead and paint the floor on this thing. and painted with this, some Rust-Oleum semi-gloss black. And you know, I'm not doing the wheel tubs and that where I cleared, just like the floor and up into here, just to get something on it. I didn't want to clear the floor, and we're gonna have mats down on there anyway, so we'll get all this stuff cleared up. I'll get the battery charging. We'll get some paint on this, then I can do some seam sealing on it. And I mean, once I get this thing to run, I think the next thing I'm gonna start tackling is get it wired. So I don't have a charging system or anything wired yet. At least get the wiring harness going so we can get the engine side of the harness done, and you know, get it to where we can fire the thing up. Plenty to do though. So let me get this battery charger going, and then we'll check back in a little bit. Okay, so I could not get that mechanical fuel pump to pick up any fuel. And I think I remember the pump looked new when I got the engine, so I just figured it was good and I put it back on there. So I put a little clicky clack pump on there and tried it, and it will fire, but I think I've got an exhaust valve down too tight because it's popping real hard when it runs, and it sounds to me like one exhaust valve is hanging open. Let's see if it'll start. Just gonna get around the other side here. I think when I adjusted those valves, I got one exhaust too tight, and it's open. So I'm going to pull the valve cover off. I'm going to go back through them and see if we can find out which one that is. Other than that, seems to be running pretty smooth. So anyway, let me let's pull that valve cover, and I'll go back through the valves and see if I can find it. Or that could be the problem. So, man, I guess, did I just forget to tighten one? I guess I could have. Yep, if I can just pick it up and put it on the push rod, that's a problem. So, let me dig out my, but they're all getting oil, so that's good. Let me go ahead and dig out my valve adjustment procedure for this engine, and we'll go ahead and swing back through them. And now that the lifters have probably pumped up, running a little bit, you know, that could have been it. Could have been part of the problem. Well, I don't know if this is hydro lifters or solids, but anyway, we'll run back through the adjustments on it. We'll fire this thing up, and we'll see what she sounds like then. Okay, so here's the old Chiltons, and we I ran this thing around to number 1, and we adjusted intake 1, 2, and 4, and exhaust 1, 3, and 5. So then I just rotated it around to number 6, and now we're going to adjust intake 3, 5, and 6, and I'll show you how we do this. I'm sure you've seen this done before, but we'll do it again. Double check my numbers there. Intake 3, 5, and 6. All right. So 3. This is the intake valve, and usually what I do is I loosen this up just until the push rod spins free, which this is already spinning free, so this is out of adjustment. So I'm gonna crank that down until and I'm spinning that rod just till I start to feel tension on it. Right there. So then I'm gonna go 3/4 of a turn. No, it's still not. That's way out. Right there. Now 3/4 of a turn. So we'll go 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. That one's good. Now we're gonna do 3, and we're gonna do 5 and 6. So 3. This is 4. This is 5. We want the intake valve, which is there. I'll back that off a little bit so we get it to spin. Right there. 3/4 of a turn. 1, 2, 3. And take 6. Yeah, that one's loose too. Right there. 3/4 of a turn. 1, 2, 3. All right. Now let's do the exhaust. Look at what those are. Exhaust 2, 4, and 6. And these are hydraulic lifters. We do mechanical lifters. Forgot what number I said. Did I say 2, 5, and 6 or 2, 4, and 6? 2, 4, and 6. 2, 4, 6, even numbers. Okay. All right, so here's number 2. Here's the exhaust valve. It's loose, and I have these way out. I wonder when run right. This is 4. I need exhaust number 4, which is right there. Feels good. Loosen her up just till she spins. Tighten it down until it gets tight. Right there. 3/4 turn. 1, 2, 3. Exhaust 6. Okay, that should do it. Set this valve cover on there just so we don't sling oil all over the place. And let's see what she sounds like. Vacuum leak. Okay. Took the fuel pump distributor back up. Put the little button back up. See, put the distributor cap back on. I guess that would help, wouldn't it? Now that knocking the camera. Will probably run better with the distributor cap. set. Calling that a win. Oh, I forgot to look at my oil pressure. Let's do that real quick. Perfect. All right. I like it when things go like they should. So I still want to try test that mechanical pump. It was new looking when I got the motor. So maybe we just didn't have it running long enough to prime this thing. I don't know. Worst comes to worst, we can put another one on it. So I'd really rather have that mechanical pump than a electric pump. All right, so I'm going to button the valve cover back up, and we're going to clean all this mess out, which we got plenty of mess in this thing. We're going to wipe the floors down, and we're going to paint the floors on this thing and leave it sit overnight. So let's do that. I'll get it all cleaned out. We'll show a little bit of the painting process, and then we'll go from there. Well, something I'd never seen before. This thing flash rusted under probably 3 coats of clear, just in this one spot. I don't know, maybe I touched it there and got some salt off my hand on there, and I don't know, but I guess it's staying, because I'm not sanding that thing down again. But anyway, I cleaned everything out of here, took some wax and grease remover and wiped all the floor down. And let's go ahead and get a coat of paint on this, and then I'll probably get a couple on it tonight and then let it dry till tomorrow before I touch anything else. So, but hey, I'm running engine. I'm excited. Okay, let's get the stuff out and we'll get rolling here. Okay, so that's one coat, and that should dry satin. So we'll let that dry and we'll get another coat on it, and then we'll take a look in the morning and see what it looks like. Oops, forgot a spot. I think that's the spot where my roller pan was sitting. That's good, because I got just a little bit of paint left in this thing. I said in my last video, this whole month really is just so busy at work, and just not much time for play, unfortunately. But we're getting this done. We're getting a video out this week. I hope to get one out next weekend. I really want to, now that this is painted, you know, we can get around to stuff like mountain seats and that, but before I do that, I want to get everything wired up in here. Well, I got the room to move around and get the brakes done, and I still need to build some kind of accelerator pedal. So you know, I usually build stuff, but I'm thinking of buying one of those street rod gas pedals that the cable comes out the bottom. So may end up doing that. I'm still not 100% sure on that yet. But all right, well, let's take a look at this. I'll get another coat on here off camera. Let's take a look at this in the morning and see what it looks like. And then I don't know how much time I'll have tomorrow, but maybe we'll go ahead and dig the wiring harness out and just kind of start laying some things out, and you know, getting some general ideas of where things are going to go and what we're going to use and what we're not going to use. So all right, we will check back tomorrow. All right, good morning everybody. So we put 2 coats on this last night, and I think it looks pretty darn good. Can I see over there? So we're going to take some seam sealer and go along some of these edges. Let's take a look at this side. Oh yeah, I like it. And I got some rubber matting. We're going to kind of make, you know, going to make some stuff for the floor for us. So I think it's good. Good progress. Okay, so today we are going to start going through some of this wiring. So this whole pile over here is going to be the wiring harness for this thing, and this should be a pretty easy one. If you followed along my 61 Impala build I did, we basically use this exact same harness out of a G20 van, but we used the fuel injection, so there was a lot of extra wires we use. But which is funny, because when you think about it, because the wiring harness I used in that car came from that van, and then now the parts van that I stripped down, I'm taking that wiring harness, which is from the same type of van, and putting it back in that van. So, yeah, that's crazy. But anyway, let's let me pull this thing out, and we'll kind of go through it and see what's what and how we're going to do that. Oh, also, last night, oops, on the wagon project, made a decision on drivetrain. So my brother had a 1996 Lincoln Town Car, which was a pretty good running and driving car, but it had some kind of weird electrical thing going on with it. It would shut off on the highway, and he did some parts changing on it and just decided he wasn't going to mess with it anymore. He was getting a different car. So I bought that from him, and that is going to be the donor car for this. So we're going to go 96 4.6 mod motor, single overhead cam. Wish it was a double, but it's a single. And the overdrive transmission and the fuel injection. And I'm probably going to cut the whole floor out of that Lincoln and use those floor pans to fix these floor pans. And whatever else we can take off of it. Maybe we can make the fuel tank work, which would be nice, because then you got your in-tank fuel pump for the fuel injection. But that's going to be the donor car. It's not going to be here for a few weeks. I got some things going on, but probably the end of the month we'll get that thing here and we'll take a look at it. We'll start making some more videos on this. But so now I gave him $700 for that thing. We're up to $2,470 on this car so far. But anyway, we're not talking about that car right now. We're talking about this one. So let me get my wiring harness out, and we'll get it spread out, and we'll take a look. Okay, so this is the full wiring harness out of that van. And I've done a few of these, so I can kind of root through here and pretty well know what's what. When I run into something I'm not sure, I bought this off of eBay for like 10 bucks a long time ago. But you can also, if you go to AutoZone, you can print a lot of really good wiring diagrams for different cars off of there. And there's all kinds of online resources to print wiring diagrams for when you run into problems. So, I mean, you can buy one of those aftermarket street rod harnesses and build from there. But you know, the really cheap ones, you don't get all your connectors and plugs, and it's basically wiring, you know, bundles of marked wiring and the fuse box. So there's a lot you got to buy with those. As you go up in price, you can get all those plugs and stuff. I like using factory harnesses because they just everything you need is there, and you either take them out of a parts card that costs you nothing, or if you go to the junkyard and you pull all this out of a donor car, I mean, they might charge you 20 or 30 bucks for it, and everything's there, and you got a good updated fuse box and all that stuff. So that's the route I like to go. So if you just kind of root through this thing, I know people probably watch me do this on the other video, so, but we'll go through it again. So I know this is, and these harnesses all kind of plug together in like, you know, harness segments. So I know this one is for the fuel tank, electronic fuel pump. It runs all the way to the back to the fuel tank. So we're not going to use the fuel pump section out of this because we're going mechanical, but I am going to use these plugs, and I am going to use this harness to run my factory wiring for the fuel sending unit. So I know where that's going. Let's see, where we're going to go to get to here. This is the part of the electric window harness, and we are gonna keep this plugs into the other half of the electric window harness. We are gonna keep that because we are gonna keep power windows on there. You're gonna lose my head because I gotta stand up. So this right here is the ECM harness, which we are not going to use most of this. Now this goes back to the bulkhead plug. Now on GM, I'm sure a lot of you know, you've got the fuse box that bolts to the firewall. It's got this that goes through the firewall, and then it's got this plug that plugs onto the end of that. The problem is we can't get to any of that, so we're going to have to kind of radically modify this. What we're going to do, see, a lot of this stuff that used to go out through this plug is not going to go out through there anymore. Like all this ECM wiring, that's all going to be gone. Basically, the only thing coming out here is going to be headlights, well, all the lights, probably the horn. I don't have air conditioning. I don't have a heater yet. Engine wiring, are we going to come out? I mean, we might run a ignition source out here, which is really all we need. One good size ignition source to go to the alternator, to go to the HEI, and a couple of sensor wires. Temperature sensor wire. Really, that's the only sensor wire in a temperature sensor because I'm running a mechanical oil pressure gauge. So a lot of this is going to go away. So we're going to root through that harness later. And then there's a lot of stuff on here that was conversion bit stuff. I mean, this is a brake module. So so we're not going to worry about that. Here's the other end of the electric window harness, so we're going to need that. This right here, this huge bundle, is all the taillight wiring, and this ran in the upper channel. It came up through the A-pillar and ran the upper channel back to the back of the van. If we're not going to be doing that, we're going to run all this underneath. If I can find the end of this crazy thing. There it is. Okay. So this whole harness is rear lights, and I think dome lights run through here too. So we'll set that over here. We're not going to worry about that one yet. So that leaves us with two harnesses to contend with here. We've got the dash harness here. Oh, wait a minute. There's more headlight stuff. Headlights. Is that headlights? No, these are tail light sockets. Headlight harness is in here off of the bulkhead plug. It's right there. So we've got bulkhead harness, dash harness. And a lot of the stuff on here we are not going to be using anymore. Now, a couple of things I am going to use, like here's a brake light switch. Now notice on the brake light switch you've got two connectors. The second connector cancels the torque converter lockup. So we're going to go ahead and use that wiring when we wire our torque converter lockup. I can't remember what that module is. This one I think is got to do with spark control. We got AC relay. Like I said, if you've done this, I've done this enough times that these are power windows. So we want to get down there. Headlight switch, that'll stay pretty much as is. Except the van ran so here's your column harness. One of these, I think this one is the dimmer switch, because you got the dimmer switch on the column. So we're going to go to a foot dimmer switch, so that's going to go. This plugged into the column, so we're going to have to, these wires I'll have to look up in the book because we're not using that factory column, so we're just going to be trimming these wires off and getting rid of those. That may be radio, and I think that, no, this is a backup switch, and I can't remember what that one is. I'll have to look that up. And then as you look at your fuse box, you can pretty much trace where things go. So there's a lot of things on here we're not going to be using. Electric fuel pump circuit, we're not going to use. ECM 1 and 2, we're not going to use. Wiper, we are going to use. We're going to use the factory wiper plug and harness, but we're going to have to come up with a different switch because it was on the column. What else we got? Gauge wiring, we'll probably use that. Yeah, we'll use that for gauge power, and there's an instrument lamp plug we'll use for instrument lamps. These conversion van harnesses have, I got these nice little ground things that I like. You just ground that to the firewall and you plug all your grounds on that. These conversion van harnesses have a lot of auxiliary plugs up here because they plug a lot of different things into them. So that's just extra stuff. We'll just pull all those plugs out of there, and they'll be there for later if we need them. So fuel pump can go, ECMs can go, power windows stay, AC can go. What's this harnesses power. Let's see what that one is. Horn dimmer we want to keep. Okay, pretty self-explanatory. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of, I think we'll start with this harness, and I'm going to get rid of what I know is not going to be there anymore. This is your gauge package plug. So we're going to need, I'm going to use the fuel gauge wiring, so I'm going to need fuel gauge. There's power wire here that we'll use to power our gauges. A lot of these other ones are going to go. We're not going to have an oil pressure gauge. We're not temperature sending unit we are going to use. So I'm going to start with this harness, and we're going to get this one stripped down. And what we're going to do with this is, instead of having this bulkhead plug and plugging into that, we're going to match this up with the bulkhead plug, the one coming out that we are going to use, and we're just going to solder that together, solder these together, cut these plugs off, and then this harness will just go out of the hole where the fuse box used to be, and we can plug it into the lights and all that, and then we'll just screw this guy to the firewall. Have to figure out some kind of seal for that, but we'll make that work. All right, that's basically how we're gonna approach it. Let me get this thing stripped down, and then we'll come back and take another look at where we're at. Probably not going to get all this done today. We're just going to get a good start on it. So, okay, I decided to start with the exterior harness first because it was a little simpler to go through. So right here is all of the headlight section. So that's kind of going to go back pretty much in as is. Might have to shorten a few things up. And then all that is, you know, fuel injection stuff and just stuff we're not going to use, ABS brake stuff, all kinds of stuff like that. So over here we've got power distribution. We've got this was the starter wire that the starter wire, and for some reason they had wired a relay in the middle of the starter wire, and it had some other a long bundle of wires coming off that were taped off. So I think at one time maybe they're having trouble getting that van to start, so they put like a you know, an under dash start switch in it and then got rid of it later. So I think we're going to reuse this relay for the, or one of these relays, there's lots of relays on here, for the electric fan. And here we have, this was the temperature gauge, so that'll get wired back into, you know, we're going to get rid of this, and that'll get wired back into there. And this is the pink wire is the ignition coil hot off the ignition, and the purple wire is fuel sending unit. So all that and that is all I'm going to use from that, but we're going to hang on to all that until we're completely done. And then, you know, I throw this stuff in a box when I'm done, and if I need a hunk of wire, then I cut it off. But not too long ago, I had a huge box full of these old harnesses that I had been chopping on for years, and I threw it all away or pared it down to a small box. But now we'll build it up again. Okay, so we've got this part lined out. Now let's go ahead and work on this part, and this part are probably going to have to get the diagrams up for some of this. So we're going to look at what we cut off of those plugs. We'll see where they went into here, and we're just going to solder that stuff together. Okay, well, that's where we are right now. Let's take a look back in a bit. Okay, so just kind of show you where we're at here. So basically what I'm going through and just eliminating a module or a piece at a time that I'm not going to use. So like I pulled this out. That is cruise control module. And I'll tell you what, if you're ever not sure what something is, just Google the part number. And 9 times out of 10, it'll come up and tell you what it is and what it's for. So that was cruise control module. This is, I think it's spark amplifier, or it's to do with the spark. I forgot what they call it exactly. But it's for the ECM. We're not going to use this. So I need to get this guy off. Diagnostic port. We need to get that guy off. This was power mirrors. We need to get that off. So basically I'll just cut along this, get the insulation off, trace all the wires back as far as they go, and eliminate them at the source so we don't have a bunch of wires hanging out in there. You know, that, like I said before, this is gauge, the gauge plug, and a lot of these I am not going to be using. What am I going to be using? I'll be using fuel gauge. I'll be using temperature gauge, and I'll be using dash lights. And so all those other wires will go. These wires here, when I eliminated the cruise control module, that's what this back switch did. When you hit the brake, it shut off the cruise control. So now when you hit the brake, that's going to shut off my torque converter lockup. And we wire that. So just thought I'd kind of show where we are. And then we've got 2 sets of these. One is power locks, one is power windows. Power locks I'm not going to have, power windows I am going to have. So we'll strip them back and get rid of the power lock part. So anyway, that's just kind of where I'm at right now. Let me keep going on this some more, and we'll see how far we can get with this today. All right, so there we are. This bundle here is where that bulkhead plug was. That's the only ones I'm going to use. So that's going to go out probably like through a big grommet in the front. So we're going to connect those to those. Make that one. Maybe I can find like some kind of multi-plug that I could use instead of that I can get to instead of this thing. Or like I say, we might just have to solder them together and run them out. So we'll figure that out. But everything else that we're not using has been eliminated. Everything is marked. The only ones I haven't gone through yet is like these go onto the columns. So I just need to see where those feed. One of these is blinker, and I gotta see what that one is. So that's the only ones I need to line out yet. And then I noticed my wiper motor plug is different on this wiper motor, which only 1 year apart. You think it'd be the same, but I guess it's not. So anyway, that's gonna do it for this video. We'll get a word from the Lord, and we'll call it for this one, and then we'll pick it up next weekend and get this thing lined out a little bit more, and actually probably get it installed. So all right, we'll catch you on the next one. Hey everybody, thanks for coming along on the video today. So it was a man, when you hear that project start, the engine start for the first time, that's always a good deal. You know, it makes you feel good. So anyway, for a message for today, I've been running across quite a few articles by this guy, Paul Copan, in my Apologetics Bible, and I thought this one was really good because it talks about, the heading of the article is, "Isn't that just your interpretation?" And I have people say that to me in discussions with of scripture before, that well, that's your interpretation. And I can't think of what the Bible verse is, but somewhere there's one that says something about the Bible is not Scripture is not open to interpretation or individual interpretation. I can't think of what scripture that is. I've looked that one up, and I'm sure you can find that. But anyway, so let's take a quick look at this article. I think it's really good. So it says, it's called, Isn't That Your Interpretation? Just Your Interpretation. And it says, few things are more frustrating than carefully presenting reasons for the meaning of a text, biblical or otherwise, only to be casually dismissed with, that's your interpretation, or that's just your interpretation. Whether scripture, history, literature, or politics is under scrutiny, we witness people reducing meaning to personal interpretation or perspective. Who hasn't heard the Friedrich Nietzsche's line, there are no facts, only interpretations? But isn't that statement presumed by the speaker to be a fact, not just an interpretation? Many claim that conclusions about abortion are just matters of interpretation or perspective, but they give you the impression that if you disagree with them, that you're wrong. So that, isn't that just interpretation? But my interpretation is more right than yours. To deny objectivity is to assume that something is objectively true for all people. Everything is a matter of interpretation, whether or not you agree with my statement. So we only have two alternatives: triviality, which means it's all perspective, including mine, so why believe it, or incoherence. Everything's a matter of perspective except mine, making a person an exception to his own rule. Most people appeal to interpretation because they don't like the other alternative. Interpretation is often a smokescreen for pursuing one's own agenda or autonomy. To better discern whether this is so, we can ask, well, do you mean that you don't like my interpretation, or that you have good reasons for disagreeing with it? So other questions worth asking are, can a perspective ever be correct? Are some things not a matter of perspective, such as the earth flat or is it round? There is a definite factual answer. It's round, by the way. How can you know that your interpretation and my interpretation are actually different? So those are very good questions to pose to somebody who wants to go down that path. I personally like the one that says, do you not like my interpretation, or do you have good reasons for disagreeing with it? So, and then it says, even if we don't always get things right, we can discern that some perspectives better approximate truth than others. We generally trust the Wall Street Journal over tabloids, even though good newspapers may be wrong at points. The fact that we can recognize that some interpretations are more plausible than others, and thus more likely true, indicates that not everything is a matter of interpretation. Therefore, we must be willing to give reasons for the most plausible position. After all, if everything is just perspective, how can we distinguish between reasonable or wacky ideas? Despite our limitations, we still cannot escape objectivity. To deny its possibility is to affirm its actuality. Even the perspectivist believes that those disagreeing with him are objectively wrong, and I think that is a great point. So, like I said, I've heard people go down that path before. And maybe when you're having a discussion with someone over scripture, they may go down that path. So the goal is, the idea is to know this book, to be able to present facts or the most plausible explanation. Now, sometimes we can't absolutely 100% prove what something is being said in here, but there is a most plausible explanation. So that's why we spend time in the Word, and that's why we get to know the Scriptures, and that's why that helps us to avoid one person, you can say, cherry picking a verse out of there to kind of twist it to their own, to their own ideas, or maybe just they heard that one scripture and it's not intentional that they're trying to twist it, but they hear one little piece and they think, well, that's what it means. Their interpretation, but their mind might be open to someone who has a wider knowledge of Scripture that can help them in the right direction. So that's the way we want to go. That's why we spend time in this book. So great stuff. Hope you like that message. And let's have a word of prayer and we'll be done. Father, just thank you for today, and I thank you for the opportunity that you have given us to know you through your word. And we just ask that you would help us to be driven to take the time to spend time in your word and to learn it and to learn your message and to learn who you are. And that when we are presenting you to other people, that we are that we're compassionate and that we're doing it with a right frame of mind, but that we to help us to know what we are talking about, and that those people that we talk to, that you would just soften those hearts and bless them and prepare them to receive that. And we ask this in the precious name of your Son, Jesus. Amen. All right, hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment. Appreciate everybody, watching videos and commenting. And so next weekend we will start wiring this thing up, and I guess we will see you then. All right.